I'm not sure enough was made about this at the time, but The Rock working the first episode of SmackDown on Fox was brilliant. Here was Hollywood's biggest star, fight me, returning home when he could easily have just sidestepped it and told Vince he was too busy juggling scripts. But it's weird how things change, isn't it? As startling as it may seem to our younger viewers who know my pal Dwayne more for voicing Disney characters, there was a time when he was a plain old pro wrestler. In fact, there was a time when The Rock was a WWE pariah, shunned by the millions and millions of wrestling fans around the world for reasons. In fact, if you've ever wondered why there was such a clamour for Roman to turn heel at the height of his unpopularity, it's because it's the exact same thing that worked for The Rock. He turned a nightmare situation into solid gold, and a quick look through WWE's history books shows he ain't the only one. My name is Adam Cleary, and these are 10 genius ways WWE stars recovered from absolute disaster. Number 10, Bob Backlund. Was there a more dorky sight in 1992 than Bob Backlund? Complete with math teacher haircut, goofy smile, pasty white skin, functional red trunks, and one of those iron print headlock on hunger t-shirts, the guy looked like a quasi-proverbial round peg in the squared circle. But Backlund, likely spotting that he was about as hip and cool as Adam Wilborn's moustache, used the fact that he was outdated as a selling point. He became a ranting, raving old-timer who was proud of being everything WWF's new generation wasn't. It was bloody genius, to be honest, and it led to the most unlikely WWF title reign in 1994. From there, he's become a revered piece of wrestling royalty and even managed to fleece us out of about $20 at WrestleMania. Thanks for the interview, Bob.
Don't talk back to me, young man.
I will do exactly as you say, Mr. Bob Backlund.
Okay.
Number 9, Paul Heyman. At the ill-fated ECW, and I'm using that term in inverted commas so big you can see them from actual space, December to Dismember, Paul Heyman cut a depressed and exhausted figure. He palmed his own forehead at ringside during the main event and looked like he'd rather be absolutely anywhere else. Not long after, he unsurprisingly left. But Heyman has often been called a mad scientist by his peers. He has a brain so creatively prolific it could probably nourish the entire gamut of WWE's television product before lunch. Harnessing his own creativity and savvy desire to nurture talent, Heyman retained his links with soon-to-be UFC conqueror Brock Lesnar, dabbled in social media ingenuity, and continued giving advice to wrestlers. Now, after proving how valuable he could be outside WWE, Heyman has repositioned himself as the Chief of Raw and has McMahon's trust. He's in an enviable spot, one free of all the stresses he hated before. Number 8, Rikishi. Following a respectable run as part of the Head Shrinkers, Fatu became an anti-drugs campaigner and then a mysterious foreign menace without a tongue. The Sultan, one of the many crappy WWF gimmicks of the mid-90s, was a complete and total flop, and it left the guy without any tangible future on the roster. Then, of course, someone in the back realized that he had a massive ass. According to Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon had once wanted Yokozuna to bare his cheeks to the world as a sumo great. Yoko didn't like the idea and wore tights instead. Thus, Vinnie Mac's weird obsession with grotesque ass meat was shelved until Rikishi came along. Being so open to McMahon's questionable desires effectively saved his career, and it was, in fairness, actually pretty intelligent. By pushing the butt-proud vision Vince had once had for Yokozuna, Rikishi extended his run and left crap ideas like the Sultan behind. Number 7, The Miz. Look at The Miz's face on the left-hand side of this picture. That is, at best, a WWE video game creator wrestler who exists only for your guy to laugh at in career mode, which is, coincidentally, what we all did. Miz was a laughingstock, wasn't allowed to get changed in the same room as the other wrestlers, and even had to use the public toilets in arenas. When he wasn't peeing next to those he was entertaining, Miz was making a fool of himself by botching Diva Search segments. But if WWE ever hand out an award for sheer determination, it should go to Mike Mizanin. Well, I mean, no, it should go to everyone who's religiously watched Raw the last couple of years, but he would be a close second. His unwillingness to wave the white flag when so many before him did impressed everyone. He worked himself into the ground to become the kind of all-round performer Vince McMahon loves. He could have done what the fans wanted, he could have done what the locker room wanted, but by focusing on Vince instead, he became a made man. Number 6, Jeff Jarrett. Come the end of No Mercy 1999, Double J was in the WWF bad books big time. Depending on whose version of events you believe, that was either his own fault entirely or just his own fault mostly. He then sought refuge in WCW, which would have been fine had it not bit the dust in 2001, thus giving McMahon control of his destiny once more. Unsurprisingly, Vince didn't take up the option of his contract. Knowing he couldn't return to the WWF anytime soon, he channeled some entrepreneurial spirit and created his own company. TNA was born, and the organization would provide a platform for stars like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Bobby Roode to become household names. McMahon's frostiness, as it often does, thawed over time, finally seeing old Jeff as a respected promoter rather than a difficult star. Number 5, Daniel Bryan. One need only take a look at some interviews with the man between 2006 and 2017 to realize that Daniel Bryan was not a happy bunny. Bored, depressed, and eager to pull on some wrestling boots again, D-Bry was frustrated that WWE wouldn't budge on his situation. Worse still, the best compromise they had for him was a mind-numbing role as SmackDown GM. Now, obviously, WWE wouldn't have let Bryan wrestle under their banner again without proper health clearance. But there's an argument to be made, and pun absolutely intended here, that his own hard-headedness won the day. He got what he wanted in the end and bounced back onto the active scene at WrestleMania 34. The rest was bad at first, but is good now. Number 4, Bray Wyatt. More Papa Shango than The Undertaker and less mankind than he was Damien Demento, Bray Wyatt was in quite the career quandary in 2015. The aura he previously possessed was chipped away to reveal a joke horror character who could never back up his bold words. And I mean, like, ever. Seriously, the guy lost every single feud. Even as recently as last year, Bray's only notable spot was in a borderline comedic weirdo tag team with fellow straggler Matt Hardy. But entire articles have been written about his smarts, and come SummerSlam 2019, we finally saw why. You see, back in 2015, he began sowing the seeds of a future WWE didn't even know anything about. By weaving his own backstory and telling chilling tales of fanciful characters, Wyatt was securing his own fate. There's a fair chance Bray knew he was an afterthought when he was doing this, and that only makes his decision to lace promos with the law all the more impressive. Today, Bray's Fiend is one of wrestling's most marketable figures, and he's been working on it for years. Number 3, Sasha Banks. Gonna word this as diplomatically as I can here. WWE's Chronicle episode on Sasha Banks revealed a few missteps by the wrestling media about her WrestleMania 35 experience. If that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, then, well, good. Nobody involved comes out of it particularly well. Still, this year's Mania was far from a cheerful one for Sasha. She admitted to being at such a low mental ebb following it that she needed some time away, and for a while it didn't look like she'd return. But Banks pretty much used the changing wrestling climate to her advantage. She must have known that rumours would strike up online about a possible jump to AEW or elsewhere. And of course, she didn't lift a single finger to dispel the growing gossip. She jump-started her own importance to WWE and secured a grand comeback program against Becky Lynch. Don't kid yourselves, that is very, very clever. Number 2, Becky Lynch. The problem with Paige's cutting jibe about Becky being the least relevant of all of us in 2015 was that it was true. WWE turned her into Charlotte's sidekick for years, and when she wasn't fetching the tea, Lynch was depicted as a chirpy Irish lass who was just happy to be there. By 2018, she was genuinely struggling to remain relevant as a standalone name, despite her enduring popularity with the fans. What followed will probably redefine women's wrestling forever. You see, dear friends, Becky Lynch cultivated a persona that blurred traditional WWE thinking on gender. The man was born, partly out of frustration and partly because Shawn Michaels advised her to just present herself as a top star, regardless of whether Vince saw her as one. And it worked. When Becky stopped pandering to fans, they suddenly loved the rebellion. Lynch's The Man gimmick transformed her from the women's division runt to WrestleMania headliner and legit hot shit in the space of 1 year. Number 1, The Rock. You see what I've done here? Brought the whole thing circling back to the intro, yeah? One for any prospective voiceover artist watching this, get on my level, etc. Anyway, just look at this. The poodle hairdo, the ho-hum blue aesthetic, the painted-on smile, the third-generation branding. Rocky Maivia, you absolutely sucked. Wasn't entirely his fault, of course. Fans were on the cusp of buying into the new Attitude Era thing and thus had no interest in this 70s-style babyface presentation. Weirdly though, it was injury and some time away that saved The Rock's bacon. When he returned, he used the genuine fan hatred as the crux of his new, self-obsessed character. The Rock was born, and he was willing to join up with with a nefarious nation of domination and stick it to those he had once tried so hard to please. Over the next 6 months or so, he grew and grew into a confident, amazing success story, and those who had once reviled him now cherished what they had. Almost like he had a plan all along. Maybe I'll text him and ask. So, there you have it. Those are 10 genius ways WWE stars recovered from absolute disaster. Read to you by a man whose long overdue heel turn is, well, long overdue. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. In the meantime, though, thank you so much for watching. I have, of course, been Adam Cleary, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.